has been conducting research into chronic fatigue syndrome, and he joins me now. Hello, good morning,
Good morning,
to you.
Helen.
Now, I know you've been working on this for quite some time, haven't you?
Yes, I think in 2005 I was asked to go and visit some constituents in Norwich North, and they were young women who were in bed and, were really incapacitated and looked really thin and down and couldn't get out of bed. And it was then I picked the problem up and met people who had been active in this field for some time and began to understand what was going on. And since then, I had carried out an inquiry with the House of Commons and the House of Lords. It was just a straight inquiry where I got people I knew who knew something about science and medicine together. For example, Lord Turnberg was on the committee, who is a big wheel in the Royal College of Physicians at the time. He'd been president. And Michael Meacher and Countess Marr and so on, lots of MPs as well, all of whom had been contacted by constituents who had the problem on the doorstep and felt that the health service was not reacting to it in a positive way, and indeed in a negative way, because they felt that whenever they tried to consult about their daughter or the son, whoever, they found, or the young person anyway, they found that the medical brotherhood mainly were pretty negative about it and said they were putting it on, it was all a con game, a kid on and so on. And that's reflected not just, of course, in identifying the condition, but in the fact that when they try to apply for benefits, the profession says they're putting it on, and it's a kid on, and that, yuppie flu was the name of it. There's been so many names. It's been around for 100 years.
Yet it's, because I was saying actually in the introduction before you came in that this happened to a chap at work.
Yes.
And nobody, to be perfectly honest with you, believed him.
Well, that's right.
Because he was a young, fit, healthy chap, but he just couldn't seem to get out of bed. And I think a lot of people at that time thought we was just swinging the lead.
Well, that's right.
Get up and get out and work.
Yes, of course.
So what happened after the inquiry then?
Well, after the inquiry, we had a meeting, and various people were quite reactionary about what we said. We said, for example, that the causes of it are not really understood. The definition of it needs to be clarified as well. There may be within ME various subclasses and so on with different associations with different symptoms. You mentioned muscle disease, you mentioned, just fatigue. Now we all get fatigued, as you said in your introduction, but this is in association with many other conditions in the body as well. And in fact, your body can react with an immune response against something which causes the heart to have a problem. There are cardiographic problems that have been associated with it, and there's other conditions, liver, kidney and so on. Now, we had a meeting here in this very building a week ago in which we showed a film, Out of the Shadows it was called, where mums had come forward and dads to identify the problems with their kids. And there were some people from Norwich I met, young people from my old area, as it were, but from other parts of the city too, and other parts of the county, who had all identified this problem and had come up against the same kind of problem in terms of the medical profession not taking it ultra seriously. Now, our line is, okay, let's cut the cackle about what causes it, and let's try and do some proper research to find out what it is. On the one hand, you have the medical establishment, if you like, saying it's a psychiatric condition, mental health and so on.
Depression.
And that's why you need certain treatments to help, that analysis. On the other hand, there's people who say, well, maybe it's caused by something else, a virus or whatever, and there have been one or two false starts in finding viruses, but we had identified people who came, suddenly out from the University of East Anglia who were interested in doing this kind of research, not with any prejudice one way or the other, but just said, give us some ME patients, you have got the money from a charity, we will do some work. We'll look at the immune responses. It might be caused by food that sets it off, who knows. Now, we've got some really, really top-notch world-class scientists here who are prepared to have a look at it and find out if there was anything in the theory that there was some physical cause or part cause of the condition.
And is that what's happening now?
Well, we're having trouble because we're running into the medical establishment, which has great tentacles all over the place. Now, some of my best mates say, no, we don't want to give the university a bad name by doing something that's not recognised at higher level.
Why are they so reluctant?
It might prejudice us in terms of getting money for other research projects, so we don't want to go into this. Now, you see, that is like a red rag to a bull to me. I listened to Radio 4 this morning, a man called Tim Hunt, who won a Nobel Prize, and Sir Paul Nurse won a Nobel Prize at the same time, Norfolk boy, incidentally, whose work, at the time was way out in left field, no association with anything particular than the yeast that they worked on, but it became quite relevant to cancer, for example. And sometimes you have to do research to, get some surprises that are not quite obvious. And that's what gets me, that there are people prepared to take a position and say, oh, it's all a psychiatric condition, they're putting it on and whatever, okay, without allowing, research to go on, which is possible here in a world-class research park.
So this report today saying that 1 in 100 secondary school children might be suffering from this. Is this going to sort of open it up a little bit more, do you think?
Well, it's good publicity, of course, but there are arguments about the numbers. Is it 250,000, 500,000 people? We don't really know, because there still is an argument about how you define ME. It's a sort of, there's a Canadian definition, which many people support, and there's a non-Canadian condition. Now, what I say is, let's get somebody who classifies by the Canadian conditions, give us your patients, and we will look at them for viruses, immune responses, whatever. We have the talent here who will look at those patients. And on the other hand, we'll compare them with people who have never been diagnosed with ME. And then we can also compare them with other people, who have other conditions and so on, and see if there are differences. Now, it might just be that this finds something out that's unique to people with ME who have been, classified by bona fide consultants. Now, that's another condition. Do people in Norfolk get the kind of treatment for ME that they deserve, however you define it, whatever causes it? And there's an issue there too, that many people say we don't get that kind of support for our daughters or sons and so on, or for my husband or wife and so on. And there is a resistance. I have been through dozens of meetings with the top brass, if you like, in Norfolk, and one or two are quite prepared to fund, this kind of research. But there's a block comes in somewhere at high level of people who are well connected with the medical establishment in London. They're defining the condition. I'm not going to mention the man who leads it, but there is one man that they don't like because it's felt that he runs the whole show.
So what can be done about this then? I mean, is it a little bit like depression was many years ago? Because people never recognised that, did they?
Or autism, for example.
Absolutely.
Autism is a new word.
So how far have we got with this? Because, you were saying this has been going on for many, many years, and you've come up to a certain extent against a brick wall. So what happens now?
Well, what should happen now is we're going to continue, because we think we're in a position to put Norwich on the map for doing this kind of research. And we've had some of the scientists go to meetings in London. I've met them there from Norwich, gone to Australia to find out what's happening on a world level about it. The Norwegians are ahead of the game. The Australians are ahead of the game as well. They don't have the same kind of problem that we do, with the medical establishment taking a very hardline position. So what we're going to do is, this time next week, we'll hopefully be meeting the scientists again and saying, come on, we've got the expert consultant who will define the patients, in Norfolk who have got ME. When we know how they've been classified and so on, let's look at them for, say, viruses. Are they different? Has Helen McDermott got different viruses from me, for example? And person C DNA. We can start to look to see if there's an association of certain viruses, and also we can look at other problems too in terms of immune responses to certain substances. For example, the bacteria in our gut change with the diet, as we all well know, depending on what you eat. Just ask people who go abroad and the feelings they have. So does that make a difference to the way your brain cells work, or your liver works, or your kidney works, and so on? Let's do some proper research without any bias. Let's cut the cackle about all this argumentative stuff and viciousness that's gone on. And it has been vicious because people have been threatening people with their lives because of it. It's got that savage in terms of the different sides in the argument. Yes. I went to Colchester recently to give a talk to an ME group, and it was packed out with people, all of whom were very sincere people who really, really want something to happen now. And research is the way forward. You know, without
is it lack of funding as well? As opposed
the government
as well as
is
opposition?
putting money in, as you heard this morning. Dr. Crawley in Bristol is doing certain types of research from the point of view that it's a psychiatric condition. That's fine, and she's got some positive results and identified the problems and so on. But there's other people too who think that she may be wrong in where she starts from, and we should, not have any prejudicial view about what causes it until we've done research. It should open up, and the biomedical side of it, for which in my inquiry I called for, I think, about £12 million to be put in by the Medical Research Council, which was cleverly bounced into psychiatric research, when we said, well, we don't mind psychiatric research, of course, but and cognitive therapy to try and help people who've got the condition. That is successful in some cases, but is not successful in many, many, many other cases, and you can find people in Norfolk will come to a meeting in the forum here and say that.
So are there any meetings coming up?
There's a meeting next Monday in the forum to discuss with the university how we take this forward. Are
people invited along to that if they've had experience of ME?
No, I mean, this is a meeting with the scientists to see where they are, because they've been put under a lot of pressure not to get involved in this kind of research because it might affect the reputation of UEA. Absolute nonsense. UEA might become the centre of making a Nobel Prize winning discovery, because research is about not knowing what you might find out. But if you don't try, if you bounce it because you think you know, then you're not, in my opinion, a first-rate researcher.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how that meeting goes. I'm sure you'll tell us more about this. And if you're listening and you identify with anything we've been talking about, then do give us a call, 01603 617 321. That's the phone number, or you can text me on 81333. Start your text with the word Norfolk, standard network rate supply. And Dr. Ian Gibson, you're going to be, you might as well stay here really, because you're going to be back here later on with Matthew.
Desert Island Discs.
Yeah, is this the first time you've done your discs?
Not 8 Desert Island. I see Radio Norfolk can only run to 6.
Well, it's cutbacks. You know what it's like.
The cutbacks are appalling. Even Desert Island Discs.
And now listen, I heard, and I didn't know this, that you used to play football. Is that right?
You've
got a Norwich City scarf around you at the moment.
Yeah, well, when I was a student, I used to play for several teams, and it got to the point it was football or academic work. And I kind of knew that I wasn't Bobby Charlton or George Best, and academic work loomed. But I'm still fanatical about football. I played till I was about 50.
I know, you're a great Norwich City fan, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Is there are you wearing that for any reason, or just that you haven't got another scarf?
This scarf has got Celtic on one side and Norwich City on the other.
Oh, right.
It just so happens that the manager is an ex-Celtic player, but this was given, it was a scarf that was struck up after the Celtic match against Norwich for Tim Shepherd, the physiotherapist's retirement.
So that's a one-off, is it?
Yeah, I think
as
they
indeed
only
you
made
are,
it for
course.
that match.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
A guy gave me this at a do out at Caister or somewhere. Yeah.
Right. Well, you'll always wear something somebody gives you, won't you? Really?
Well, when you're poor like us, Helen, you have to take anything that comes. Yeah.
So you're going to be on Desert Island Discs? No, you're not.